Are we live? I think we're live. This is wild. I'm gonna be very honest. When I started the numbering convention of all these videos, certainly the hope was that I would get to number 100. Um, but we're at number 100. We finally hit the triple digits. And I obviously, my savior TE, but also just me being a person. Thank you for watching all of these. This has been a really fun project to work on, to stick with, to get to keep working on, to sort of track all of the not the changes in OP because like the math is still pretty sound, but like Shave's putting out new content, the group is evolving, we're evolving, and so it's been really fun to respond to that. And I'm really appreciative and excited and happy that we made it to 100. We fucking got here. And I sort of when I was realizing that what we were leading up to, I was like, you know what? For number 100, I was like, well, we could either do it. It was going to be one of my two demon functions, and I was like, do I do my SE, which is last, but like FI and FE, it just felt very appropriate for number 100. And so I wanna break it down because in so many ways, FI and FE have they're not the same function, obviously, duh. But they're real close. Like they're not as far apart as I like to sometimes think that they are, as a lot of people sometimes think that they are. I get mistaken for having FE, maybe not all the time, but like if I walked around and I was like, yeah, I'm an ENFJ, nobody would fucking question it unless you are deep into OP. But if I, if I, went into the Myers-Briggs community, I could probably fool a lot of people into thinking that I was an ENFJ, right? I got the lead N, it's the abstract. I'm not Oprah in a lot of ways. I certainly have a lot of Russell Brand energy. Again, he's another ENFJ, sleep last, more on the double masculine side of things, which again, the masculine sensory also plays into that. And so I'm thinking about like, okay, where the fuck is this coming from? And it's coming from a lot of different places for me. So I grew up, my mother is a lead FE. The vast majority of people that I knew in the musical theater community, that's a very intensely FE driven culture. And also like nerd culture, right? So I'm into gaming, video games, Magic the Gathering, whatever. That's a very TI, like lead TI, a very like INTP kind of culture. And so I see it on the flip side of like a bunch of these TI dudes, few ladies, but mostly dudes. Certainly when I was playing, the bulk of it, it was like all dudes. There's like a bunch of TI dudes running around trying to FE. And so I saw FE in a demon state. So it was just like a lot of FE was in a lot of my personal environment, much more than FI was. And so I feel like my FI in combination with my feminine TE sort of was able to adopt and mimic some of the patterns of FE, even though I don't actually have it. Because what I'm really starting to process and really starting to realize is that my FI, it is, oh man, it's so fucking weird. As I've said on here before, I know this flies in the face of the math, but like on an abstract level, I very much feel like I am lead NI with FI last because I'm doubling up on my masculine SE at the bottom of my function stack. So that's where I'm sort of like, yes, it's not technically how it works, but like my FI is arguably my biggest demon. And it's the one that has historically kicked my ass the most. Just because with my SE at the bottom, Like, yes, I'll have those pretty big tidal waves, but they're weirdly not the tidal waves that I never see coming, right? They're big and I can't do a lot about them because my SE is pretty weak. But the ones that like sneak up behind me and are like, aha, this is your actual problem, fucker, they tend to be FI problems. Like tracking the last 34 years of my life, it's always the FI that really sneaks up on me. And so I have that startledness, and then I can deal with it. Like maybe I can go back and forth a little more easily because I am still a double decider, single observer. But the like sneak up on you, gotcha factor, that absolutely, like my FI takes the cake with that. And then the size factor is probably more my SE, but I can see it coming and I can prepare for it and I can do whatever, right? So I want to break down FI first and what FI is doing, what it's trying to do in its purest form, and then talking about how us FI users, whether we have it as a savior or a demon, boy, oh boy, could we benefit from just doing more FE, because FE is a fucking useful function. Holy shit. Holy shit. I mean, FE gets shit done in a really pronounced and tangible way. It has its downsides, don't get me wrong, but whew, that shit gets done. Shit gets done. So what is FI trying to do? So FI is, it's not just personal values, because everybody has things that are important to them, that matter to them, that they like, whatever. But what really distinguishes FI to me, and really all of the introverted functions are doing this in their own way. I talked about this in the SI video, the TI video, a little bit. I'll get into it when I really break down NI as well, talking about FI here. All of the introverted functions stack. Regardless of what letter is attached to it, all the introverted functions, FI, TI, SI, and NI, it's all about it's not just going several layers deep. It's going several layers deep, one layer at a time. So it's like, okay, well, if this is true, then what else is true? If this is true, then what else is true? If this is true, then what else is true? You see that really, again, I see it in a very pronounced way with SI and TI, because those are they're functions I don't have, and it's not attached to my NF demon sleep, so I can see it extrovertedly a little bit easier. It's like with the TI people, I know this is the same analogy we always fucking use, but like looking at how a really precise watch is made, it's like, okay, this gear attaches to this gear, and this gear attaches to this gear, and this gear attaches to this gear. And then when this weight moves, then that weight moves, and the weight of this gear counters the weight of that gear, and then that charges this. And it's incredibly minute. And it's very granular. Maybe granular is the word I'm looking for. With all of the introverted functions are so granular. My NI wants to build a sandcastle one grain of sand at a time. And over time, I've gotten better at being a little sloppier with it. And again, certainly my SE at the bottom, but it is very much, okay, here's one concept that I know is stable and solid. From that concept, what is the shortest distance that I can connect to this other concept? And then what is the slight variation on that concept that the next concept can connect to, right? Because it wants these super, super tiny, 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 tiny gaps between, again, for my NI, it's the concepts and the patterns. With my FI, it is actually kind of similar. If it's like, okay, here's this thing that I like. So then I am now looking for something really close to it that I also like. So here's a really good example. My uncle, who I love to death, I think that he is either Sylvester Stallone's type twin, right? So some sort of IP. I think that he's an IJ, just because of how ridiculously well we get along. So I think he's sort of like so he's definitely double masculine. So he's sort of like a Rick Beato-ish type. So he's like sleep blast. I think that my uncle has consumed pretty high with low play. But again, be that as it may, he definitely has savior fi to hell. To hell. And so when he gets into something, he wants really, really close things that are really, really close to that. The example I'm going to give, there's a song called "The Weight" by the band. The band did it. John Denver did a version of it. It's the song from Easy Rider. Pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Great song. So my uncle loves this song. He went on iTunes or the internet, whatever, and downloaded every version of that song because he's like, I love this song. And he didn't, again, that's a dumb anecdote, but that to me is an illustration of how an intense savior fi can manifest. And it's very much like it's not even about gathering and control and chaos and like known information for him sometimes. I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But when it comes to his fi, if something isn't already attached to his fi, opening his mind to liking different things, and especially if it's things that other tribe members are on board with, like he will die on dumb fucking hills. Like dumb fucking hills. And it's like, and it's funny. So I've mentioned this before, and listen, my uncle is not a perfect person. My uncle is not a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination. But I love him very much, and I've learned a lot from him. And he is somebody who I have learned to take the nuggets of advice when they appear and throw away what doesn't work because it's informed by toxic patterns of trauma and bullshit and whatever. But one thing that he said to me is he had a lot of problems in his first marriage and also his second. Again, one of his big repeating patterns in life is because he feels so responsible for his values, his beliefs, his ideas, he will often just like stick to his guns well beyond when it is actually useful or helpful for the situation at hand. He tells me, here's what he'll do. So he's like a hotshot lawyer in New York, right? He's, been a New York lawyer for 50 years. And he'll just, if he's bored in a meeting, like he'll just fucking leave the meeting. If he's like, this meeting is bullshit. If you need something, you know where to find me. And he'll fucking get up and just leave the meeting and go to his office and do other work. And you're like, Mike, where'd you go? I was in my office. I told you where I was going to be. If you needed me, you could have found me. But that meeting was bullshit. And I didn't want to be there. So fuck you. Like, Mike, what are you doing? Now, again, he's been there long enough that he can kind of, do whatever he wants. But that is what FI is like. If FI is not on board, it's like, nope, absolutely not. Which, if you get a little too into it, what he said to me. So I think, as I said before, I think his type, I think he's a lead sleep NF like Dave. I think he's an IJ, so an INTJ, sleep blast. I have seen his consume be pretty good. He does not seem to have the consume issues that Dave does. But he definitely has issues with collaborating with other people, leaving the tribe out to dry, and just like not doing play energy because why? Fuck you, tribe. That's chaos. That's no. Fuck you. Like he can be very Jerry Seinfeld-ish in that way. If Kesha were to come up to my uncle at an awards ceremony, my uncle would respond in the exact same way. He'd be like, "What the fuck are you? No, get the fuck off him. What the fuck is the matter with you? Get the fuck away." And like that's what he would do. Because he just doesn't have that play muscle very strong. It's just a lot of sleep energy. So, but that, like, I've weirdly learned a lot about FI through him and through Dave and watching this intense feeling of, no, I am obligated to behave in a way that aligns with my morals and my values and, you know, my priorities. This meeting is not a priority for me, so fuck you. And I have to do me. I have to do me, because if I don't, then I'm not any use to anybody if I don't do me. And again, where he's gotten his ass kicked a little bit is not realizing that, like, hey, if you align with the tribe and like let people help you, your life gets a lot easier. Now, again, part of that is his age. Part of that is that he was a Marine. And that is this sense of like intense, I am alone in the world. All I can rely on is myself energy. You know, very, very useful when you are a Marine. Legitimately, 100%. He was drafted in the Vietnam War, did not end up going, but he did his training with the Marines. He's a fucking Marine by like, that's just what he is. You know, so, but his FI, man, like, it's why, and you see it with Dave too. And again, Dave has definitely softened a little bit, and has sort of learned to work around that. But yo, Dave, for sure, like, if Dave doesn't want to do something, fuck you, it is not getting done. Whereas me, so because I have demon FI, it will get done, and I'm just going to be mad about it. Like, I'm just going to be salty that I have to do this thing that I don't want to do because the tribe is asking me to do it. And so what I'll do as a demon FI is I'll just defer and be like, you know, okay, if I do this thing for this tribe member, then I'll have checked that box, and then I can go back to doing what I want to do. Because the FI, savior or demon, we know what we want, and we would love to only ever align with that FI. And the saviors have a much easier time doing that, and going all in on that. But the demon DIs, the demon FIs, right, like me and Shan, oh buddy. Yeah, we just that we got big I'm not allowed problems. Big I'm not allowed problems. Yeah. Well, okay, so it wouldn't be NIFI blast play, because you can't be, so if you're NIFI, then your first animal has to be sleep, and then your second animal has to either be blast or consume. So if he's NIFI, you know, so yes. So I think he's sleep blast. I think he's like Dave and Rick Beato. But then again, that's just my sort of slop typing of him, but definitely double masculine. Oh mama, that double masculine. Hachimachi. Um, so why would me, why would I, an FI user, ever give a shit about FE? And why is FE useful to all of us with FI? Well, here's the thing. Our FI, because it is so granular and because we have put in so much time, like really like honing it. Again, even for someone like me with Demon FI, some of it is that I haven't put in the work, but a lot of it is that I just haven't prioritized it. But the work that I have put in on it, it is all accumulated. It is, okay, I liked this thing when I was 7.5. And then I invested time and energy into that. And then to nuke something. So, like, one of the big things that I've, talked about is, when I quit musical theater and I nuked my life in New York and all of that stuff. Part of what made that so goddamn hard is that I had to go back into like 15-year-old Raja's FI and find the brick that said musical theater and had to like find that brick and go, oh, fuck. Well, if I get rid of this brick, then this entire wall just comes crashing down on me. And so it was a matter of being like, okay, I know that brick is there. Maybe I can move some stuff around so that not as much is resting on it when I do decide to nuke that brick. But it takes a really long time to get my FI anything unstuck, because that is a personal value that my identity has been resting on and has informed, half of my life, right? From ages 15 to 30, I was all in on being on Broadway. Like, that was, I fucking went to school for it. I did all the musicals. I moved to New York. Like, I did all of this shit with that goal. And then to nuke that, it wasn't just, I've moved on to something new. It was, oh, fuck, this thing that mattered to me doesn't. And I have to acknowledge that. Holy shit. So, where is FE useful? Well, FE is super duper fucking good at being, it's not really flexibility, because then you get somebody like Gary V or Russell Brand, right? Those ENFJs, the lead FEs, but it's masculine FE, so it's not like it's punching you in the face. It's not gonna be like swooshy Jessica McCabe lead FE. But when it comes to values, they don't get stuck on, like, they're willing to survey multiple things, right? So, for me, if there is something that I like, right, the idea of checking in with the tribe to see if other people like it too, that like very rarely occurs to me. I'll do it to see if I can make something work with the tribe. But the idea of like, well, other people like this thing, maybe I should compromise my FI in this thing that I like. That's that just doesn't really occur to me. Because how can I change what I like? I like it. Yes, exactly. It is compromising my identity. And that's where I think the FE superpower is that it's able to play the values game, the emotions game, in like, again, especially if it's a savior, in a very adept way, but they don't get stuck on it, right? Much in the same way, and I'll talk about this when I, do the TE for TI users video. Much in the same way, my TE doesn't get stuck when it comes to logic and reasons. It just doesn't. If you give me a better reason to do something or not do something, it's so easy for me to just like, oh yeah, That's a good reason. All right, fair enough. And I'll just move on because my identity isn't tied to these reasons that are being thrown out, which is why I like Shave's content so much. It just makes sense to me, right? Because they're just like TE shit blasting everywhere. And because my identity isn't like I don't have to take all their stuff and like see how every little thing fits together like subjectively personally. It just has to work in the outside world, right? Which is why FE types can be so intensely charismatic because they're like, all right, this is what the room is valuing right now. Great. I can go along with this, right? Maybe that's more of a feminine expression of it. Or if it's like, hey, this is what I want the room to feel, right? It's very in tune with the values and priorities of the room, right? So, it can get the same results as TE, absolutely, right? So if I'm with a group of friends, we're trying to figure out where to go for dinner, and let's say there's four of us, it's really easy for me to go, okay, so you have a gluten sensitivity, so ramen is out because you can't eat gluten. You have a lactose intolerance, so the pizza place probably shouldn't do pizza, okay, because that's not gonna work for you. So all right, so if ramen's out and pizza's out, okay, you know what? We could do sushi because the sushi won't affect your gluten thing. It doesn't have the dairy for you. You happen to like seafood. Okay, you know what? Sushi works for everybody, right? I can show you the logic of why sushi works. I can demonstrate it, I can indicate it. So great, we end up at the sushi restaurant. FE could easily end up at the sushi restaurant, but it's going to be more like vibing it out and being like, okay, how do you feel? Like, what is your priority? Okay, so ramen is lower on your priority list. Okay, great. Noted. Okay, and then we have ramen's at the top of your list, but pizza's at the bottom of your list, even though everybody else's pizza is closer to the top. All right, well, we can't. Okay, that's not fair. That's not fairsies if we do pizza because it's at the bottom of your list and your priorities, even if it's at the top of everybody else's. But you know what? Everybody has sushi as either 2 or 3. You know what? That's fair. That's fair, right? Everybody's priority is going to mostly be in the same realm. Cool. Let's do sushi. So here's why that is such a useful muscle for us FI users. When there is an absence of logic, to say the least, right? Again, that's not a great way to put it. But if it's like, okay, well, I'm not really seeing the reasons why we should or shouldn't do something, right? That is for whatever reason that is missing information. Again, I'm framing this as a double decider, but like go along with it, right? There's if TE is unavailable to us, and this is purely a feelings, values, emotions driven decision that we have to make, right? Making this decision logically ain't going to work for us. It has to all be about feelings. Well, now you're fucked, because if all I'm doing as an FI user is checking in with my own feelings and making my decisions based on my values and my priorities, well, that's bad for the tribe, guys. That's not going to work, right? So if you're in a situation where values and priorities trump logic and block banging, and the needs of the tribe trump the needs of me, the individual, FE is kind of your only option. It's your only option. So the way to actually do this that I have found is, again, what has worked for me in the past when I'm like, fuck, I have to do the FE thing, right? Clearly FE is the right tool for the job. I feel a little inept when it comes to doing it. What the fuck do I do? Here's what I would say. It comes down to taking a poll individually of what do you like? 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 And sort of like framing their desires in an FI kind of way. And then from there, then you can go, okay, now I have to step back, weigh all of these, and then see what is fair based on each of these individual FIs. Right? Now, FE is going to just do that fucking lightning fast. Right? And they'll be able to vibe it out, whether it's with their S function or their N it doesn't fucking matter. They're playing that measuring even fairsies game when it comes to priorities and values, and like, I guess you can call it ranking people, right? But that's really hard for us FI folk to do. There was that video maybe a month or two ago where it was Mindy Kaling and Jimmy Fallon. They're both INFJs, and they're on a talk show together, obviously his talk show, and they're going back and forth talking about people and values. And like, she had this anecdote about like, it's important that like Rihanna is so famous that whenever I see her at like a red carpet or an event show or an award show, I have to remind her who I am because she's so famous. And she just won't, and she's always really appreciative. She's like, yes, Ocean's 8. Yes, thank you for reminding me who you are. And then it's a lovely conversation, right? FE wants to align all of those values together and wants to see values as sort of like a chunk, whereas FI wants to see each of the individual layers of all of the values and the feelings, right? So FI and FE, again, they're really doing a lot of the same thing when they're like, first off, FI is not going to want to take a poll of the room when it comes to values. It just isn't. But when it does, the next hurdle for FI to overcome is to then say, okay, we have each of these different values and these priorities. What is the average value? Like, what do all of these values average out to? That's a fucking powerful thing. That's an incredibly powerful thing. Because, and here's where I get fucked up as an FI. I assume that because my values and priorities are subjective and they are fixed and they are mine and they are my identity and nothing will ever move them. For instance, so like I have a couple of weird hills that I will die on. First and foremost, the TV show Good Girls Revolt got canceled prematurely. I will never get over that. I will die on that hill forever, period. Because canceling that show at the end of 2016 was just the wrong thing to do. It was wrong. It shouldn't have happened. Fuck everybody involved in that decision. It was bullshit, and I fucking hated it. Right? That's how FI can get about values. Not everybody is like that, and certainly not everybody is like that about everything. That's the wild part, is that I think that the FI folks take for granted that FE folks, they may have hills that they die on, but they're not based on right and wrong. It's their hills that they'll die on are based on logic and, the block banging and the minutia. Again, I don't love bringing up Ben Shapiro because I think he's kind of a jackass, but he's a very good example of TI. Same with Jordan Peterson, kind of a jackass, very good example of TI, and how they've built their like castle of logic that they are trying to stand on, and they will die on that hill, right? But when it comes to values and priorities, they're like, yeah, no, I am comfortable. I am perfectly comfortable taking the temperature of the room and acting in sort of like the greatest common denominator, or at least common denominator, right? Like taking the average. That's what I'm looking for, right? Taking the average temperature, being like, yeah, there's one person who's at a 97, there's one person who's at a 64, but everybody else is, somewhere between 75 and 80. Yeah, all right, let's go with the nice 76. Right? Right in the middle. Maybe erring slightly towards the person at 64 because that person, I don't know, is a whatever, right? That's what FE is doing when it comes to values and emotions and vibe and feelings. Whereas FI is like, but everybody has different temperatures that they like. So we should, set the temperature to whatever makes the most sense logically, regardless of how everybody is feeling, right? So if it's like, well, it's hot out, and yeah, we should set the temperature. Like the guy who wants it to be 64 degrees is actually correct. And those other people, I don't really give a fuck. That is the priority. The best priority is this 64-degree person, and everybody else is responsible for their own emotions and feelings and doing what they need to do, right? That's fine sometimes, but having that extra muscle of really being able to take the average mood and the average values, incredibly useful. Incredibly useful. So I'll end on this. I watch a lot of TV. I work, in the business. I live in LA. Every network has their own kind of vibe and flavor to it. I haven't mapped all of them onto OP, but CBS in particular feels very Savior FE to me. Their shows, they're a little lowbrow. They're not super, super sophisticated. They have shows like Hawaii Five-0. I think they had 2.5 Men, Big Bang Theory. Even a show, one of my new favorite shows, it's called The Unicorn. Love the show. It is the most inoffensive, innocuous show I've maybe ever seen. There is nothing even 1% controversial about the show The Unicorn. It is lovely. It is delightful. I want to see what else is CBS shows. Now, to be clear, they have since expanded a little bit, with their CBS Plus, so that they can do edgier stuff like Enterprise, whatever. Okay, so here we go. Programming, list of programs broadcast by CBS. Here we go. Current programming, right? They have the like NCIS, Blue Bloods, Young Sheldon, like that kind of stuff. Survivor, Big Brother, like just very middle of the road, least common denominator kind of programming. And that, they're very, very successful. but there's where they have really excelled is in their ability to be like, what do most people like? Um, Ooh, that's a great question. How does Effie reach a conclusion when every single person has different want? Um, they just find the middle and they go, so they'll do it one of two ways. They will either be like, okay, let's have, I'm just going to use the dumb analogy of like temperature in the car, right? They'll reach a conclusion by either going, okay, the average temperature is a 74. So everybody can just, align, the people who want it hotter, they can deal. The people who want it a little cooler, they can take off their like whatever, right? They're really looking for that middle ground. I guess sort of in the way of like it is like TE in that they want the most people to be happy and they want validation from the most people. But they're not here's what it is. They reach a conclusion by going, I get that every single person has different wants and it doesn't matter. Right? The wants of the many, right? What do most people want? Okay, so maybe it's this. Maybe it's this. Whereas okay, so let's say ha 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 ha. So let's say you have 5 people in a car, right? Everybody wants it in the car to be a different temperature. Anywhere from 64 to 97. TE is probably going to go, you know what? Let's just find something right in the middle. And then individually, we can take off our, everybody can take off their jacket or put on a sweater, or you give your jacket to that person and whatever, and we'll all be, right in the middle. That feels very TE to me. FE, I guess, would be more if you have, 3 people who want it to be 64, one person who wants it to be 74, one person who wants it to be 97. They're like, you know what? Most people want it colder. The group priority is on the cold end. The other 2 people just align with what the group as a whole wants. Maybe that's it. That feels right to me. Regardless, from an FI perspective, it really just comes down to recognizing that our subjective wants may or may not align with the wants of the tribe, and it may be in our best interest to align those desires with the tribe. And that's a really hard thing for us to do because when it comes to values and priorities, that is our identity. And it does not want to swoosh around, even if it is feminine and it's certainly not going to want to just like something because someone else likes it. Right? It's just not going to do that. It's like, but just because you like it does not oblige me in any way, shape, or form to also like it or feel that way. And that's not untrue, but I think it is worth considering the times in which that gets in our way. Because oftentimes it doesn't require that much movement. It requires a lot less movement than I think that we think it does. And so let's say we're dealing with an FE person, if we're willing to show that we can move our FI a little bit and align with them 5%, an FE user will be like, it's cool, I can get that other 95%. And you haven't actually moved that much. It feels like it because it feels like your entire identity and sense of significance is resting on it. But I think you'd be amazed at the mileage you can get by aligning with the group when it comes to values. And And just to see like how much validation can be gotten and the sense of significance that can be gotten by your willingness to align. And that sense of community and camaraderie and not being so all in on, well, I like kitties. And if you like puppies, then we have nothing to share back and forth to each other because I only like kitty pictures. And if you like puppy pictures, then we have nothing in common. But if you like kitty pictures, we can go back and forth all day. But I'm not going to send you a puppy picture just because you like it, because that doesn't totally align with my FI. I think you're cutting off a lot of opportunities. And I say this looking at Raja in the camera mirror, being like, you're cutting yourself off from a lot of opportunities by being so fucking rigid when it does not serve you. All right. That's all I got for today. Thank you again for getting me to episode 100, getting us to episode 100. This is very much a communal effort. I really do believe that. Those of you in the Facebook group, subscribers on YouTube, thank you for your continued support. And here's to the next 100. Bye.